Welcome to the Trip Tales podcast with me, Kelsey Graves. Let's jump into a new episode exploring a vacation destination that you'll want all the details about. Hey everyone, welcome back to Trip Tales. Before we get into today's episode, let me quickly thank my most recent buymeacoffee.com supporter, the Travel Bros podcast. They bought me a coffee and wrote, "Great new episode. You do a great job with Trip Tales." Well, thank you, fellow podcasters who understand the behind-the-scenes work that goes into recording, editing, and producing a podcast. I so appreciate the support. So as many of you regular listeners know, we started a series on the Trip Tales podcast called Trip Fails, where my guest shares about how a trip either went wrong, didn't pan out the way they had hoped, or maybe didn't meet their expectations. On episode 36, my guest, Danae, shared about how her family trip to Beaches Turks and Caicos felt like a total trip fail, from how much the trip cost to her outdated room, subpar food, and in her opinion, lack of good service. After that episode aired, I received loads of DMs from people on both sides. Some that said, "We felt the exact same way about Beaches, Turks, and Caicos." And many that said, "What? We absolutely loved our family trip to Beaches, so much so that we have booked multiple return trips." So we have two of these people here today who would like to share why they both wholeheartedly believe that Beaches, Turks, and Caicos is a wonderful place to take a tropical family vacation. First, we have Carrie, who was actually on one of my very early episodes, episode 2 of Trip Tales, all about Dollywood and the Dreamore Resort in Pigeon Forge. So welcome back, Carrie. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast a second time.
Yes, thank you for having me, Kelsey. This is awesome.
Let's do a rapid fire get to know you. So tell everyone where you live, about your family, and how many times you've been to Beaches, Turks, and Caicos.
Okay, I live in Franklin, Tennessee, just south of Nashville. It's pouring down rain here today. I have two kiddos. They are fifth grade, so my son is 11, and then my daughter, she is 6 and in the first grade. And we just went this past fall break for the second time to Beaches, Turks, and Caicos, and have a third trip booked already for next fall break.
Amazing. And next we have Stephanie Howard from Traveling Ears Vacations here. Welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Tell everyone where you live, about your family, and how many times you've been to Beaches Turks.
I am in Richmond, Texas, which is about 30 minutes west of Houston, just in the suburbs. I have two kiddos. One is, our daughter is 10, that's Paisley, and our son Parker is 7, about to turn 8. And we have been to Beaches Turks collectively about 7 times, and we have 3 future trips planned to go back.
Amazing. I'm jealous. I also have a son named Parker. I just had to tell you. Yeah. And he is 9, so he's almost the same age. So that's so fun.
How cool.
Yeah, I have girl, boy, girl, 12-year-old girl, 9-year-old boy, and 7-year-old girl. So fun. Okay, Stephanie, I have to tell everyone about your reaction after you initially listened to the Trip Fails episode. So before this podcast, I didn't know Stephanie. And one day I opened my Instagram DMs and I had like 3 or 4 long voice memos from Stephanie. And she was like, "Hi, I know you don't know me, but I need to share my thoughts on that episode." And then like 10 minutes later, after I listened to all your thoughts, I was like, "Why don't you come on the pod to share this all?" Because everyone is entitled to their own opinions and everyone has different experiences on vacations and at different resorts. And I want to share all sides so that listeners have as much information as possible. But I was laughing when I was like, okay, she has something to say.
I always do. So thank you for hearing me out. I felt compelled because I love the resort so much and the destination. And so when I listened to the podcast, I had so many feels and so many emotions about it. And I agreed, in certain areas with her as well. But I just think that there's always, 2 sides to an experience. And I just felt very compelled to voice my opinion. So I appreciate you hearing out all 10 minutes of my voice memos.
Yes, and I'm so glad you're here now. So let's start with price. Both of you mentioned to me separately that while Beaches Turks and Caicos is not a cheap resort by any means, you can stay there for way less than my Trip Fails guests trip cost. So, Carrie, let's start with you and how much you typically budget for this trip. And then, Stephanie, I'll have you follow up with what people should generally expect to pay since you plan this trip for a lot of your clients.
Okay, sure. The first year we did use a travel agent, and so we kind of went into it knowing what other friends here in the area had gone and spent, and so we tried to budget between 10 and 12,000. And so our first trip came in right at about 11,000. And then, so knowing what we knew the first time, we opted to just do it ourselves. It's really easy to rebook once you're on the property, so we went that route. So for our second time, we actually got it about $9,500, and that is the resort and the flights on both of those prices to get there.
That's great. Yeah, I feel like a solid family trip these days, like a big trip, like an all-inclusive or a Disney or a ski trip. It's like 10K is kind of what you should expect. When you said you book at the resort again, do you get like a discount for booking while you're there, your next trip?
You do, yes. So they will, once you go, they have a loyalty travel office there. You can go in and kind of see the price of whatever week you want to book in the future. And so that's what we did last time. And that's what we did again this time to book for next year. So you get an additional 10% off if you book before you leave. My husband's also in the military, so we compare that with a military discount. And then once you stay with beaches or sandals, you start to accumulate points. And so that in turn can be added on for discounts if you want to cash those in.
Awesome. Stephanie, do you want to follow up at all with any pricing information?
Yeah, so I would agree. I usually tell my clients, and realistically, what I'm seeing when I'm booking is minimum of 10,000 for Beaches Turks, some upwards of 13 to 15,000, just kind of depending on the family size and the village and the like room that they choose. I will say the price point really depends on which village you're in, which room category you're booked in. There are certain room categories in certain villages that I won't book for clients. They are the lower priced villages, but I do think that those typically warrant a not as positive experience. So that's why I generally don't even quote those for my clients. Like I go into it like they don't even exist. Unless they just say, or I just ask them, if you just want to go and you don't care about your room and you just want to get there for the best price, this is that. But I will say, generally speaking, for a family of four to go for about a week. Actually, I just booked this for some friends yesterday. It's a family of four going 5 nights in June, staying in a really nice 1 bedroom with a loyalty discount that was mentioned as well. And I want to say it's like right around 9,500. So it really depends on time of year, room category that you're looking at, and also promotions. I think a lot of travelers don't know about the loyalty and travel discount that was mentioned, which is a wonderful way to save. You can still, also shameless plug, you can still work with a travel agent even if you do book a loyalty and travel discount on site. But they also run promotions every week. This is a huge way to save with beaches. Every Wednesday, they release another set of promotions. So it's 7% off certain room categories at each resort. And that can be stacked in addition to any other promotion, generally speaking, like a loyalty and travel discount, a military discount. So that is another really great opportunity to save an extra 7% on a specific room category. So that's something that we're always looking out for. We get those notifications every single Wednesday when a new promo comes out. And we run a query against all of our reservations that we have booked for existing clients. And if it's available, we go ahead and automatically apply it, because the goal is I don't like paying full price for anything in general. So I don't like that for any of our clients that were sitting there as well. So if I can, like, it's just icing on the cake, right? They already have this expectation of paying $10,000 or $12,000. So if we can get an extra 7% off for them, they're always thrilled about that.
Yeah, I think this is a great example of why it is so helpful to work with a travel agent sometimes. Kind of like you, Carrie, I can get into my own, like I want to plan it all myself just because I am a heavy researcher and trying to figure out all the things. But you travel agents know so many little that the deals come out on Wednesdays. Oh, let's wait a couple days to stack this. And also, it's helpful for, a traveler to speak to you and say, hey, for me, this trip, because of some stuff going on in our life, price is the most important. We want the most budget friendly, or we want the best room. And then you have that information and you can take that and plan the best trip for your clients. You kind of mentioned the different villages. So let's move into different villages and room options because there are a lot. So, Stephanie, you've stayed in a bunch of the different areas and the rooms. So, why don't you give listeners just a little lay of the land, a brief resort overview, touching on the different areas and what makes them unique?
Sure. So I'll start with the French Village. That is the best price. I will say the most cost-effective village. Rooms are a little bit dated on that end, so I will agree with that. However, they are constantly working with each of the resorts to update those. And we have calls with them every single month. And that was something else they hashed on our last call last week, is that the Beaches brand is going to get a huge facelift coming up in 2025. So I'm really excited to see what happens with the French Village. Exterior of the French Village is beautiful. It's very quaint, looks exactly like what you would imagine in a little French village. They have the Juliet balconies. They have a very beautiful pool with a swim up bar right there. It's a little bit tucked away, a little bit further in the back. However, that means it's closer to the water park, lazy river, the slides, things like that. So it's a little bit further from the beach, but it is closer to the kids' amenities. Then you have the Seaside / Caribbean Village, which is kind of clumped into one. It is a combination of standard type rooms and then also 1 and 2 bedroom butler suites. And it is, I would say, if you want to be closest to the ocean, like you want somewhat of an ocean view, Caribbean or Seaside Village is where you would want to be. It also has its own set of swimming pools that are close to one of the kids' camps as well as some of the dining options. So location-wise, I think it is great. It's kind of right in the middle. It's in between the water park, dining, and then also some of the main pool, which is over in the Italian Village. So I'll touch on Italian Village next. Italian Village is the heartbeat of the entire resort. If you want to be in the middle of everything, the Italian Village is where you want to stay. So for people like my husband who have FOMO and have to literally be in the middle of it all the time, the Italian Village is perfect for that kind of a family. They have, and it looks just like Italy. It's absolutely gorgeous, huge pool with probably the top swim up bar. You'll have DJs out there. They'll have kids activities going on. I think last time my daughter was fishing for a conch shell to win a competition. They have foam parties, they have cocktail parties, they have movies in the pool. So the Italian Village, like I said, is just the heartbeat of it all. The rooms there are phenomenal. They are all inward facing right over that Italian Village pool. So if you don't like being in the heartbeat of it all and you want to go to bed early, you don't want to stay in the Italian Village. The rooms of the Italian Village are some of our favorite because they have penthouse ocean view rooms. So if you want those sweeping 180-degree ocean view rooms, that is what you will find in the Italian Village penthouse rooms. Then you have the ground floor rooms, which are the walkout rooms. So you walk out of your back patio and your steps from the pool. So convenience is really nice there. And then all of the rooms in that, well, not all, but vast majority of the rooms in the Italian Village are what they call a family suite with a kids room. So it feels like a little one bedroom apartment, so to speak, because the kids have their own space in the very front of the room, which is a bunk bed with a trundle bed. So that actually sleeps 3 kiddos in its own space with a pocket door, a tiny little vanity, their own closet. And then you have the primary room, which is for the parents with a king size bed, their own bathroom with a pocket door as well. So families really like that dynamic because there's separation between the kids' room and the family room with either a balcony or a patio. So that's the Italian Village. And then my personal favorite is the Key West Village. It's going to be the furthest out from the French Village, right? If we're start looking from right to left, it's going to be the furthest out. But I like it because it's very close to the Italian Village. So you're steps away from being in the heartbeat of the resort, but you still have this really tucked away, quaint feel. And it really does feel like you're just in this little village in Key West, like a little beach town. Rooms are a lot more updated there as well. So if I've got a family that is really picky and really wants the most up-to-date rooms, I always put them over in Key West. I am one of those people proudly. The room matters to me. And I will say the Key West Village just kind of checks every box because rooms are a little bit more updated. They have standard type rooms. So if you don't need a suite or a villa, they have just like a room with a king bed, or a king bed and a trundle, or they do have 1, 2, 3, and 4 bedroom villas as well. So I particularly cater to the Key West Village for most of my families, but I have a lot of families that stay in the Italian Village as well.
Thank you for all of that information. That was so helpful. Carrie, you visited Beaches Turks and Caicos twice for fall break, I believe, in October 2023 and 2024. And both times you stayed in the Caribbean Honeymoon Grand Lux with Trundle room, correct?
Correct.
Which I kind of laughed that it's called a honeymoon room when it has kids trundle bed.
Trundle. Yes.
But tell us about staying in the Caribbean Village and that room and how that works for your family.
For us, we knew we wanted to stay at a certain price point. We like to take multiple smaller trips throughout the year. So this is not just like our one big trip. And so in order to do that, we knew we wanted to stay within a certain price range. If I'm going to the ocean anywhere, I want to wake up and see the ocean. So for us, that's why we like that particular village. And that room category, because you had a balcony, we could see the grounds, we could see the pools, and then the ocean was there every morning. So that's kind of why we liked that one. It also, like Stephanie had mentioned, is sort of close to everything, I think, for us. If my kids wanted to do the water park, it was just right behind us. If we wanted to go to the ocean, it was just right in front of us a few steps. And we also have requested to stay in the particular building close to the Italian Village, so that when we want to use that pool or that bar or those restaurants, we're literally just down the steps and across the walkway into that village as well. So that's kind of what geared us to stay there. Like I said, our kids are still little, so we didn't really want Italian Village because there's times when I don't want to hear the DJ, or there's times when we went the first year that my daughter was 5. She would need to take some quiet time, just being out in the sun. And so we wanted to have quiet, but still be able to go and do all the fun things when we wanted to.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, let's talk about all the things there are to do at this resort because there is a lot. Pools, beach, daily water activities, kids clubs, other activities around the pool. Stephanie, I know that you probably know all the offerings they have. So Carrie, why don't you share what your family's favorite resort activities are when you go? And then Stephanie, you can follow up with some of the other things that are available at the resort.
One of our favorite things for all 4 of us is snorkeling. So whether that is with the resort doing one of their guided boats or going off on our own, that's what we like to do there.
I love snorkeling as well. That's like my number one when I go places.
Yes. And I will say they do have plenty of masks, goggles, snorkels, fins, all of that. We take our own stuff just because
look at you.
I'm not a huge, like, let's share that kind of stuff.
Yeah, stuff that you're putting your mouth on.
Exactly.
Is the snorkeling good? Is it like, do you see quite a bit?
You do. So this year we saw less than last year. This year the currents and like the undertow of the water was a little bit rough, so we were limited. Last year, my son and my best friend who joined us on the trip, they all saw sea turtles swimming. There are large fish. There's anything you can imagine down there. So like I think Danae mentioned it, you do have to get up early and sign up the day before. So if someone in your group is an early riser, that might be the job for them. If, for example, if we wanted to snorkel on Tuesday, one of us needs to go down around 7 a.m. on Monday and sign up for that. So it's not like you just go whenever you want, and they do fill up. I usually wake up super early and go get coffee by myself. So I'm usually the one who signs us up for that. It's not a problem. We also love all the activities that go on at the pools. Like Stephanie mentioned, at the Italian pool, every day there's activities, there's trivia. This year the kids did water balloon toss relays. There are bubble parties in there. So that's another fun place to go. We would always kind of make sure we were in that area when those activities were going on. The land activities that they have, there's tennis, there's pickleball, there's beach volleyball. They have an entire entertainment team that not only puts on the nighttime shows, but they're also doing daytime activities. So for the kids, they would always, leave the beach and go over and do the basketball shootout competition, or they offer free tennis lessons with a professional. So some people in our group would do that in the morning. So I think just having all of those options to where you're not tied to just sitting on the beach makes it really good with kids. And then I'm sure we'll get into that at some part, but the water park is also a huge hit for all of the kids who are in our group.
And is the water park just to show up whenever you want and jump on water slides thing? Or do
It
you
is.
have to okay.
Yep, you just walk in the back, and there's a lot of different things. There are surfing simulators. It's a splash pad similar to what you and I would know here in Franklin. Those type of splash pads for the little kids. There's lazy rivers with single and double floats. There are 3 very large slides that you can just go up. The first year we went, you had to wait maybe 2 or 3 minutes, before it's your turn. And this time it was just go up, slide, go back up, slide. There were no lines.
That's awesome.
Of it. There's also chairs. The ice cream truck is back there, mac and cheese truck. The diner is back there. So it's a great place for the kids to hang, get an afternoon snack, and just kind of be corralled to one area. But very entertaining for all ages. We had my daughter who's 6 up to our friend's daughter who just turned 13, and they all are content to just kind of go back there and hang out for hours.
Hey, Trip Tales listeners, I'll keep this short. If you're loving the podcast, leaving a review or buying me a coffee is the quickest way to show your support, and it will ensure that these amazing trip stories keep coming. Leave a review wherever you are listening to this podcast, or buy me a coffee at the link in the show notes, and I'll literally do a happy dance when it comes through. Okay, back to the show. Fun. Okay, Stephanie, let's touch on any activities that we didn't already talk about and how you know what's going on, because this seems like a lot, like how you know how to navigate your day, or if you're going to miss something over at the pool while you're on the beach, that sort of thing.
So they actually have a scheduler with all of the activities that are going on throughout the day. They have a big board located in several different areas on the resort. We usually just take a picture of it and just reference it throughout our trip, but they also will print them for you as well in the concierge lounge or really any front desk. They'll print them for you too, so that you know what's going on where at what times. I agree. The water park, hands down. It's actually one of those places to where we don't start there because we know once we get back over there, we're not leaving because it's like a little kid's paradise. They even have, in addition to everything that Carrie mentioned, the kids have their own swim up bar. It's not a bar, like there's no liquor or drinks or anything. It's just a menu for kids, frozen drinks. So they absolutely love that.
That's super fun.
Yeah, and I think it makes them feel like they have a little bit of say-so in their vacation too. So, but that's really how you figure out what's going on is they have the scheduler, which is really nice. The kids clubs, I will say my kids have a really terrible job of being guinea pigs for all of the kids clubs that we go, the kids clubs for all the different resorts that we visit. And they have been to all of them and at different ages from, I think our son was 3 the first time he visited a Beaches, and he's 7 now, and our daughter is 10. So they've been going to the kids clubs for all of these years, and they absolutely love them. They do a lot of times it's like arts and crafts. Sometimes they'll have games going on. They'll even have like beach Olympics. I've actually been on the beach when my kids are doing the beach Olympics with the kids club. So that's always really fun to see. They'll do races up like relay races up and down the beach. They'll do sandcastle competitions with the kids. So they really do a good job of getting the kids involved. And I will say the camp directors are all very, very passionate and very well vetted before they're brought onto the kids' camps, which makes me feel really comfortable with it because being in the industry that I work in, that's one of the big questions I get is how are you comfortable leaving your kids with strangers in a foreign country? And my response is always, I've never felt uncomfortable with it. And that's really the beauty of the kids' camps is you can go and tour them. You can pop in anytime you want to, and you can see that the kids are happy. And if they're not, they always have a way of contacting you. I've never had my kids contact me because they weren't happy. I've been contacted like, hey, they were just ready to go, like meet up with a friend or something like that. So it's always really great to know that you can pop in and pull them out whenever you want. But the kids club also does have scheduled activities. So that was something that I had to get used to because not every resort functions that way when it comes to the kids clubs. But Beaches does. They have a certain schedule that they follow. And so you want to drop your kiddos off at those scheduled times so they can do those events. Now you can drop them off at any time. However, if they're in the middle of something or they're like at Beach Olympics, so they're not actually in the kids camp, they may have you come back. So that was a little bit of an adjustment for us for Beaches, but we know that now. So that's an expectation that we just are aware of.
So the kids club is like a location and it has an indoor space, but if they're off doing Beach Olympics, they might say, "Hey, can you come back in like 30 minutes when we're all back here?" Is that kind of what you're saying?
They could. There have been times where they're like, hey, if you want to drop them off, just leave them here for now. They'll play games. And then when they get back, we'll loop them in with the event that's going on.
Got it.
But yeah, they are a little bit more structured than some other kids clubs where you just drop them off and it's just kind of like free time.
Yeah.
The other big thing that our kids really love and that I love that's included is the glass bottom boat. That's not included in a lot of other all-inclusive resorts. That is definitely something that would cost a family of four, a couple $100 to do. So I love that that's included. Couple of other things that our family has really enjoyed as far as like water sports are the kayaks and the Hobie cats. Those also you would rent. They do fill up as well. So you just go put your name on the list. As long as they have availability, they'll just let you know, hey, come back at this time, or we have one ready for you now. But the kayaks are just kind of like open, free kayaking. They do have a certain area that they ask you to stay within. But it's a great way to see and explore like outside of just being on the resort. And then the Hobie cats are like mini sailboats that you can either take out on your own, or they'll actually have somebody from the water sports team take you out if you're not comfortable with it, because it is a mini sailboat, so you've got to know how to get out and how to get back in.
Yeah, that feels complicated to me. I'd be like, I don't trust myself on a mini sailboat.
Me
I'd be
too.
out to sea.
Yeah, me too. But they're more than happy to take you out. And then another activity that I like to mention that it's not included, but I will say a huge convenience factor of staying at Beaches is they have their own pier, which means if you book a tour, even if it's not through Beaches, they pull right up to the beach or to the pier or the dock right there. So it makes it really easy. Like we've rented catamarans before and they just pull right up to the beach. We don't have to get in a shuttle anywhere or go to any other part of the beach. We just literally walk out to the beach and get right on the catamaran. So that's something that we've really enjoyed doing too, to kind of get out and see the island a little bit more.
Awesome. And that is something that Danae mentioned on the Trip Fails episode, was that the beach is absolutely gorgeous. Turks and Caicos in general is just an extremely gorgeous island. So let's talk about the beach and just kind of not even all the activities, but just relaxing on a beautiful beach.
Yes, that is one of our favorite things about it. We start every morning, we do breakfast, and then we go to the beach until about lunchtime, and then we go get lunch. And then sometimes we'll go back just because everyone is content being down there. It is the clearest water that I've seen anywhere. Like the beach is clean, the water is clean. You can see things, at depths unlike anywhere else. For example, like when you snorkel, you might be on top and you might be able to see 20, 25 feet below you, the reef and the fish and all of that. It's also fun. The kids can stand in it. There's not a lot of waves. Like, for example, if you go to the Gulf Coast, right? It's beautiful there too, but there are waves. You can boogie board, you can ride the waves. You can't really do that in Turks most days unless there's wind or it's a red flag or something like that. The water is very calm. And so even our daughter, she can stand, she can swim with no trouble. And so that kind of is comforting because you're not worried about, is the wave going to take them out or can they stand? They also have, I'm not exactly sure the name of them, but big yellow things out in there where you can just go and lounge. They're almost like stationary floats.
Yes, I love those things. We hung out in those in St. Lucia. It's like a massive, like donut-y type
Yes.
disc float. They're so lovely.
Yes. So they have those out there. And then, like I said, the kids take their own snorkels. So even right there in the swim part, they'll just snorkel around and they'll see all kinds of fish. They find all kinds of shells. So it's entertaining enough for them. The sand is cool. It's white. It doesn't burn your feet. It's, there's not a lot of rocks in it. So the kids just kind of walk around barefoot. But we do love the beach. We've never had an issue getting chairs. They also have the chairs with canopies over them, umbrellas, and never once have we had any trouble getting kind of prime real estate where we want to set up at. We usually try to set up in front of the Caribbean Village just because we're close to the restaurants and the pools. The restrooms are right there. This year, we kind of ventured on down a little bit where they're doing the new construction because there was no one set up there. So literally, you could look in the ocean and all you could see were my kids and their friends that we were with. There was no one else over there. So it's not crowded because it is so big.
Nice. Do you bring beach toys or do they have them there?
So we bought them and brought them the first time, and the kids didn't really use it. I got turned on to actually a Facebook group for people who travel there often. And people will actually post, hey, we're leaving on Sunday. We're leaving our toys outside of room XYZ if you want them. So this year we did that. And then at the end of our trip, we post the same thing like, hey, we have toys. And you just kind of keep recycling them. And that worked. But the kids don't really use the toys a lot. I mean, they were content with some cups in their hands this year, like making things. So they don't need a lot of stuff to be entertained, which is nice because you don't have to pack a lot of things for the kids.
Yeah, that's a great point. We've talked about it on this podcast before. And I think most listeners probably already know this, but every destination now has these super helpful Facebook groups where you can find out stuff about the different villages or the different room types or about the beach toys, that sort of thing. So I am always quick to join those Facebook groups when I'm planning my next trip. Stephanie, did you have anything else you wanted to share about the beach?
I would agree that it's really not hard to get beach chairs, no matter what time you're going out there. That beach is so huge and widespread. I mean, it goes on. I think there's chairs that go empty every single day, even as packed as that resort can be. It is rare that you see every single chair taken, which is a really nice thing because I can't say that for every single resort.
Definitely. Okay, we talked a lot about what y'all do during the day there and how much you love it. Let's talk about night entertainment a little bit. How is the resort in the evenings? What's happening kind of after dinner time? What are you guys getting into? I know sometimes with kids and a beach day, you're wiped and you just go back, but I'm sure there's stuff going on in the evenings.
Yes. So every night there's usually a show on the main stage. And I will say, I'm not even a show kind of a girl. Like I don't really go to like Broadway shows or anything like that, but they are some of my favorite shows, especially the Michael Jackson night. The entertainers are insanely talented. I mean, not just costume looks like him, acts like him, moves like him, sounds like Michael Jackson. I remember sitting in the second row, trying to move up to the front row because I was like, I can't get enough of this guy. He was so good. And then they usually have like a family feud style night, which is always really fun because they put two families up on stage, which is hysterical. Usually they have like a fire, like a fire breather. I don't know what it's called.
Yeah, those like fire dancers where they're
Yeah, like a
throwing it
fire
around,
show.
putting it down their throat. I'm always like, what are you doing?
Yeah, that can't be good for you, but I'm here for it. They'll usually have a Sesame Street show where they bring in all the Sesame Street characters. So they just always have a lot of really great entertainment that genuinely keeps our kids entertained, and it doesn't feel cheesy. It doesn't feel like forced or anything like that. Our kids are really there, and they're there before we are. They're saving the seats in the front row for all of us. And then sometimes they'll have like a dessert party back behind us where they'll have like a whole like dessert spread. And then there's a bar conveniently located there for mom and dad as well. So it's just a lot of really fun, genuine family time that you don't get when you're home and you're busy. The other things that we've done at night on resort is there's a pub there called the Cricketeer, and they have usually they have like karaoke, and the kids can come in there up until a certain time of the night, and then usually around like I want to say it's like 10, they'll kind of shut it down and it becomes adults only. But we'll take the kids in there and teach them how to play pool. Last time we were there with another family, actually three other families, and the girls sang Taylor Swift karaoke. So it's just a lot of fun because like I said, back to like the kind of water park area, the kids kind of dictate what they want to do, and the parents also get to dictate what the parents want to do. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. Like our kids are singing Taylor Swift, we're sitting at the bar getting drinks with our friends, and everybody's having a great time. And so I think that's why we continue to go back, because it's just kind of the best of both worlds for all of us. And like Carrie mentioned earlier, all ages. We've gone with all the way from your 2 year olds up to like 12-year olds, and everybody has been content the entire time.
Love it. Carrie, any other evening activities that y'all enjoyed that weren't mentioned yet?
I think Stephanie and I could travel there together because it sounds like we kind of do the same thing. But she mentioned earlier about getting the schedule every day. So this time we had housekeeping come in twice a day. So every night at turn down service, they would bring us the calendar for the following day. So you could see what was going on that night too. This time they did an island cultural night, which was super cool because they talk you through like life, economics, government about all of the islands, not just Turks, but a lot of them. And then they also did a reggae night, which was super fun this time. And they had crowd participation. So the kids got to go up and dance. Super entertaining. Like she said, there's a bar back there. Sometimes they would have vendors set up to where you could shop like from local merchants who would bring their goods. There's the cafe back there. So the kids would go get pastries or cookies or some kind of imitation coffee drink, and everyone would just be content with that. So this time, I think we split our time. Half the time we did shows. On Friday night, there's also a street party, and we've done that. They do a big parade, kind of a buffet style food setup, and a lot of vendors come and you can buy things there also. And then the pub, I think we ended up there every night this last trip because the kids would play pool, like she said. The dads would play pool with the kids and the moms could sit and chat while that was going on in the other room. They also have a sort of like a teen lounge for younger teens. So I think it was something like 10 through 13 or 11 through 13. And then there's one for older teenagers. But our group this time could go to that. So if parents wanted to sit and watch some of the show, we would allow them to go to the teen lounge. And it was foosball, there's ping pong, there's just different games like that that we would send the kids to do. So that's kind of how we did the evenings this time.
I was going to ask about the kids clubs and the hours because that is something that on the Disney cruise, it's wild, but they're open until like midnight, I think, maybe 11 or midnight. But it was kind of helpful because if they had made a friend and they wanted to go back, all of a sudden we'd be like, we're kid free and we could go to like one of the adult bars or something. So I was going to ask. So it does sound like there's options for them in the evenings as well if they're feeling like they want to hang out with friends in a lounge. That's kind of cool.
I think so. And then our kids have never done it. We've just kind of always not really, I mean, we haven't not allowed it, but we just don't encourage it and they've never asked. But there's also a video game lounge that a lot of kids would like, they're going to go play there. And so there's that option too. And we've not used this service, but knew people who did. You can also pay a nanny there. So basically, if kids club hours are over, you can hire one of their trained certified nannies for the evenings if you want to do activities by yourself. That's an option too.
Yeah. And if your kids go to bed early and they're younger, then maybe that nanny's basically just sitting there, but at least that's an option. Okay, I do want to talk food, but I want to back up to rooms. You had mentioned the turn down service, and I forgot to ask. I know a big part of this resort for some room categories is butlers, and people really love them. So I wanted to kind of ask what room categories get them? Do you guys think it's worth it? And what has your experience been with them?
So there are room categories in all of the villages that offer the butler service. So you have to book that specific room category if you want the butler service. I get asked the question a lot, can I book this room and just add on the butler service? And that answer is hands down no. You have to book that specific room category. And it usually is the bigger suites, the bigger villas, things like that. So my go-to response for this is the only problem with vacationing with butlers is that you'll never want to vacation any other way. So just know that going into it, if you do it once, you're probably going to do it again and you're going to do it again. That being said, I have done beaches and sandals resorts with and without butlers several times. I do love having the butler service. However, you have to see the value in it and you have to be willing to utilize their services in order to see that value, if that makes sense. The first time I ever used a butler, I had no idea what I was doing. I did not know what they could do for me. So you get a butler phone to communicate with your butlers, and we let our butler phone die. We had no idea that we needed it. And so we were just clueless. So that is usually one of my biggest pieces of advice is if you are going to pay that amount of money and have a butler, make sure you use them because they want you to use their services. That's what they're there for. So, some of the big ways that we've been able to use butlers, first and foremost, is they take everything to your room for you. You're not lugging suitcases anywhere. You're not trying to figure out where you're going to find your room. They're going to greet you at the butler lounge, and they're going to take you directly to your room, get all of your luggage in your room for you. If you want them to help you unpack, they will certainly help you unpack. The other big way that we use them is reserving pool and beach chairs for us every day. So that's one thing that we don't even have to think about. And one of the things that I always appreciate the most out of having a butler is the amount of time that I save by not having to do the little things like figure out where my room is at. Yes, I have a map. Yes, I have the room number, but I don't want to figure out where it's at. I'm on vacation. And so they're saving me time by going directly there. The other thing is they're saving me time every day by having to hunt out a pool or a beach chair. So we usually set that expectation with them on the first day. We're like, hey, we either want to be at the Italian Village pool or we want to be at the beach on these days, or we want to be at the water park. Can you just let us know what you have reserved for us? And they will. They'll write it all down. They'll reserve things for us, and they'll let us know either the night before or the morning of, like, hey, this is where I have your pool chairs reserved. Usually they'll have like a cooler for you as well with like some drinks, some bottled water, juices for the kids, which is always convenient because, again, that's time saved that I'm not having to go to a swim up bar or go get something out of the room for the kids to have. Other big ways we have used our butlers is to bring food to us so that we don't have to go get it. And that's done all via the butler phone. We either call or send them a quick text. And you do have to remember you are on island time. And I think that's a big adjustment that a lot of travelers don't realize. That's not just a saying, it really is true. And that's the beauty of it. And that's why you're going to these destinations, is to get away from the hustle and bustle of what we have every day at home. So enjoy it and embrace it. However, you do have to keep that in mind that if your kiddos are generally hungry for pizza at noon every day, you probably want to text your butler at 11 and let them know, or go get in line for pizza at 11, knowing that it'll probably be ready around 11:30, 11:45. So again, that's just one big thing that we've used, whether we're with our kids or without them. Getting food is a lifesaver. And I'm talking about breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Like if you want room service for breakfast, they're going to be bringing that to your room. If you want pizza by the pool, if you want like some sort of specialty dessert or like a specialty cocktail, they'll bring that to your beach chair. And then for dinner, they're making any of those arrangements for you. If you're going to a restaurant like Hibachi, Kimonos always requires a reservation. Having a butler, you're always going to get that reservation, and it's always going to be at a prime time. And if for some reason you don't want to go to the restaurant, they will actually, having a butler, they can actually bring that dinner option to your room for you. So if you don't ever want to even go to the restaurant, they'll bring all of that food to your room, which is really nice too. They'll help you kind of get your kiddos off to the kids club. So if you're kind of wondering what's going on, you don't want to look at what's going on in the kids club, they're going to let you know what's going on at the kids club. Now they won't like physically take them there for you because you do have to sign them in and out being the parent. But they can help facilitate that for you. And so that you know, especially being like a first time visitor to a beaches, you may not know that you need their passport when you go to the kids club. So your butler's going to let them know or let you know, hey, don't forget your kids' passports. You have to have that to register them the first time. So I will say hands down, the butlers just save you so much time, so much effort, so that you don't have to do a lot of the things that you would be doing if you didn't have a butler. However, I've gone many times without a butler, and we figured it out. We just spent a little bit more time going and getting the food for our kids, waiting in line for certain drinks and things like that.
Can they sign you up for those activities that you guys were talking about? You have to like go a day in advance for snorkeling. Can they sign you up for that?
They can. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. You had mentioned that they can bring food to you. Is there also room service outside of the butlers, like a general room service menu that's available?
No, that's a great question. So at beaches resorts specifically, if you do not have a butler room, there will not be room service. So that's huge. That's a big deal for a lot of people.
Yeah, that's just good to know. So we're on the subject of food. So let's talk food. On the Trip Fails episode, my guest shared how she felt like most of the restaurant choices were buffets, and at the actual restaurants, the food was just okay. I will mention that she said the food at the hibachi restaurant was their favorite and they had a really fun time there. So that was their favorite. So who wants to give their thoughts on food in general first?
So for us, we try to avoid the buffets for dinner. They're there, but there are enough restaurants for us that we don't eat the buffets at dinner time. Breakfast every day, we do start typically with a buffet because it's quick, it's easy. There are Fruit Loops and fruit for the picky 6-year-old. There are create your own omelets for my husband and I who like to eat that kind of stuff. Breakfast meats, sides, things that we have, and then things unique there too. Sometimes it's neat on the buffet. You might try something that you would never order, but it's maybe, a type of cuisine from somewhere else. So we do the buffets for breakfast. This year, we also did Sky one morning for breakfast just because it's on the rooftop of one of the other restaurants. So the views are beautiful up there. And it was a slower service, but we knew that going into it. So we
Is that
knew
like a sit down where you have a server?
it is. You have a sit down, you have a server, you order off of a menu. There aren't a lot of tables up there, which I think is maybe why it slows the service down. But also, you're looking at just this most beautiful view. And so we didn't find it to be a problem that we had to
Yeah.
wait a little bit longer. Lunch every day, like Stephanie touched on, we loved getting pizza by the beach. And so if we knew every day, hey, we're probably going to want to eat around 12, we would go up at 11 and there was a wood grilled pizza place by one of the pools and just put in your order. And then you go back to the beach, do whatever you want. And then you just go back at a certain time and pick up your pizza. We also frequent Arizona's probably half the time for lunch because it's their more Tex-Mex cuisine. But during the day, they have an outdoor grill and you can get hamburgers, hot dogs, and then they also grill grilled chicken and grilled steak and then have a make your own taco bar. And so we would just go get wraps, all the sides, the fruits, the salads are all inside. It was just an easy thing that everybody liked. Jerk chicken truck is another favorite for my husband and my son. I think they had that twice when they were there. You just kind of walk up to this stationary truck, order that, and then again, you can either eat it there out on the beach or take it with you wherever. Dinner time. Yes, kimonos is a big hit. Last year we did it twice. This year we did it once just because we wanted to try some new things. We had a guy this time, his name was Fortune Cookie. Stephanie, I don't know if you've ever experienced him, but he was the highlight of the trip for almost everybody. It was just a great experience. He had each kid in our group. We had 6 kids this time. He had them up cooking. He had them up dancing. He had 4 of the big kids reenacting the Dirty Dancing lift scene while he sang over as he's cooking.
Oh my gosh.
He would leave the table and go get drinks for us if the server wasn't back and just be like, here you go. We're still going tonight. Like,
Wow. Shout out Fortune Cookie.
he was amazing. He was worth a name drop. Sushi is also another one. We actually like soy when we go. 3 out of 4 of my crew love sushi. So when we go there, we get a lot of different rolls that we wouldn't order here at home. Our 6-year-old obviously does not like sushi. So on those nights, we go over to Giuseppe's, which is a buffet, but they have a make your own pasta station and just get her spaghetti with marinara. And then they'll wrap that up for you to go. So then we take her spaghetti back to wherever we are. Same thing if trying to think where else.
That's a good tip, though. That's a good tip. My youngest, who's friends with your daughter, also is like a pasta lover. It's probably just their age, but it's good to know that you can wrap something up and then bring it to a different restaurant if you're planning on eating something else.
Yes, and you can do that anywhere. Bobby D's is the diner there, and it's open late night, but you can get grilled cheese, chicken fingers, pizza, burgers, very American, kid-friendly food there. So we'll do that sometimes. If we know we're going to go eat something more adventurous, we'll get her something wrapped up from there and you can take it. Each restaurant does usually have 2 or 3 kid options, chicken nuggets, fries. They might not be Chick-fil-A, but the chicken nuggets are fine. And my kids are never hungry. So they can usually find something. Barefoot by the Sea, we ate there twice this time. It's probably one of our favorites just because all of the tables are out on the sand. It's in the Italian village. My son had like mahi, there's swordfish, there's conch fritters, steak, shrimp, surf and turf, those types of things from there. So it's a sit down. But this time we didn't experience any wait times. Like it was just like if you go, order here. Schooners is another one where you can get crab cakes and scallops and all different kinds of fish prepared different ways. And that's another one that we like. Also sit down. Typically that one does take a little bit longer for whatever reason. But like Stephanie mentioned, it's kind of island time. So when we're at home, like life is so rushed. If I know we're going to dinner, we usually have somewhere else to be. You're in a hurry. So that's the one week of the year where I don't plan where we're going to eat. We don't make plans to rush out of there. So if it takes a little longer for us, we're fine with it. But if you have little kids and you need to get in, you need to get out quick. Sometimes the sit down restaurants are a little bit slower. But it's not due to lack of service. I think it's just how they operate there. And as long as you know that going into it, that it's not going to be super, super speedy, I think the expectation will be a little bit better. And for us, we're not huge like foodies, I guess. Some people say, well, how's the food? We want to go for food. I've never been to an all-inclusive where the food has been like 4-star, blow your mind away. It's good. It is filling, but I've never been like, wow, And so for us, again, we just kind of have that expectation. We're going to like the food. There's plenty to choose from. Options are endless. But if you are someone who's expecting top-notch cuisine everywhere you go, I wouldn't say that you will get that at all the restaurants. Some of the dishes are very good, and some of them we did love. But like I said, there's always, if you don't love it, we would just go try something else. One night we went to Neptune's. It was Mediterranean style cuisine. We would never dine that type of cuisine here, so we tried it. None of us really liked it. It wasn't that the food was bad. It was just, that's the way they eat food there. So we just, once we were done trying what we tried, we just left and went and got something else for the kiddos. Ice cream options, dessert options are endless everywhere you go. The diner, like I said, they do sundaes, milkshakes, banana splits. So the kids would usually get something like that. You can always just pop into a restaurant and order dessert to go if there's something that you like. So for us, the food options are still, we've been twice and we still haven't tried everything that's there. So we've had no issues with that.
Stephanie, why don't you touch on your thoughts on food, and then if you need reservations, or if, kind of like Carrie was saying, you can not have a plan and just show up throughout your trip.
I would second everything that Carrie has mentioned, to be quite honest. And we're kind of the same opinion. Like, we're not huge foodies. However, I will say there have been all-inclusive resorts that I have been to that I don't think I ate anything other than rice the entire trip, just because it was all bad. I cannot say that at all about the Beaches resorts, specifically Beaches Turks for sure. And I will say, if you spend most of your time in the buffets, you are probably not going to have the best dining experiences for sure. However, the breakfast buffets are amazing. That's all we eat for breakfast as well. So I would just second everything that Carrie had to say. I would also highly recommend La Petite Chateau. That's the French restaurant there. We actually ate there for the first time. Like Carrie said, you can go so many times and still not eat everywhere because there's 21 combined restaurants there. But the French restaurant, we were very, very pleasantly surprised. I think I got the French onion soup, which was amazing. And my husband actually ordered some sort of beef off of the kids menu of all things. And it was so good. I think he ordered a second one. And it was actually where they sat us was outside on the patio that overlooked the entertainment stage. So our kids were watching the show, like the Sesame Street show, and we, the adults, were all eating dinner an amazing dinner, knowing that our kids were entertained. They knew where we were, and we're all just right there together. So, highly recommend the French and eating outside, specifically during a showtime. I thought it was perfect. And then Sapadia, I think, is a little less known. You do need reservations there, and they do have it is adults only after a certain time, but they've got a great surf and turf menu item there that I think is definitely worth making the reservation for. So you only need reservations, I believe, at kimonos and sapadias right now, maybe schooners as well. It changes often, to be quite honest with you, but you don't need a ton of reservations. And even if you don't have a reservation, you can usually just walk up and see what the wait time is. But they're pretty flexible, especially depending, like if you're going during a non-peak time, you don't have to have a reservation. There just may be a little bit of a wait. But I would agree with soy. I think the sushi there, we've always had a great experience. And what I really love about all these restaurants is it gives our kids the opportunity to try something that they may not try when we're back at home. For example, sushi. I would probably never pay for sushi for my kids when we're here at home. However, when we go to beaches, they know every year they're going to try it. They probably are not going to like it for a very long time, but they do try it every year. And that's kind of the beauty of it. And then, like Carrie mentioned, we just go get them food like nuggets or a burger from Bobby D's right behind us, and then bring it over to sushi, and then everybody's happy. So that's kind of my take on food as well.
Love it. Question about the all-inclusive portion of it. Is everything included once you're there, or are there certain things in terms of drinks, like adult beverages, or certain restaurants that are extra? Because I've been to a few all-inclusives where this restaurant's actually not included, and this premium level of alcohol is not included. So is everything included, or are there some things that aren't?
The only things that are not included are if you wanted to buy like a more upgraded bottle of wine, you can order those at the dinner table. They just add it to your bill. And then if you wanted to do like a private beach dinner, that would not be included. But other than that, to my knowledge, everything else is included.
Yeah, I think everything else is included. They will offer like excursions through there, and they have a little island routes tour desk there. That's all stuff that you're going to pay for, but those are your excursions. So that's nothing there. But as far as the restaurants go, everything is included. And then do you mind if I add in just one more thing about the restaurant? So
yeah, go for it.
Stephanie mentioned La Petite and Zapadias. Those, when we were there, they said it changes, but when we were there, those were for 12 and up. So we couldn't dine at either of those when we were there because they said they had age restrictions on those. So that's just and then Sky for dinner. For breakfast, kids could go, but for dinner, we were told 12 and up. And I think they said that kind of changes throughout the year, but just for the listeners, because we have heard that those are two of the best meals on the resort. And we even tried to kind of smuggle our children into La Petite this time. And they were just like, no, you have to be 12 and up. So just to kind of throw that out there, but no, everything else was included. We didn't pay for anything once you're there.
That's good to know about the ages. And it's really good to know about the all-inclusive, because I feel like so many places are all-inclusive, but then there's all these ways where they're not. So it's kind of nice to know, you pay for your trip ahead of time. And once you get there, you are like, we're golden. We don't have to spend any more money if we don't want to.
Yes, that's honestly the beauty of it. I don't feel like I have to tell my kids no when we're there, which is really nice. And also, sorry, just to go back and add one more thing to the dining. Certain restaurants are closed on certain days. So it is a rotation that they work on. So I think that's another expectation that if you know about that, it doesn't come as big of a surprise, but just for pure staffing and the fact that they don't need 21 restaurants open every single day, right? Understandably so. The restaurants are on a rotational schedule to when they're open. So I think that's important to know before anybody goes there.
Yes, very good to know. Okay, let's talk service. I will say in other forums and travel groups I'm in, service does seem to be a hit or miss topic about this resort. Stephanie, I know you have some thoughts to share about the culture of the locals and Turks and Caicos here, and how that might be misinterpreted by some people as bad service when there might be more going on here. So why don't you share what you shared with me in one of your voice memos?
Yeah. So, I mean, in general, like we mentioned, you are on a Caribbean island. It is a very, very different experience, especially if you've only traveled to, say, Mexico. The way that the culture is in Mexico is vastly different than the culture in the Caribbean. And so I think there's a lot of comparison there. It is a very, very slow paced, true island time whenever you're there. They are not in a rush and for good reason. And again, that's why we're going to these destinations. However, Turks and Caicos is one of, if not the most expensive destination you can go to. And that being said, there is a little bit of a cultural difference there as well. They know you're in a very well-to-do Caribbean island. And so the culture there is just a little bit more, they're a little bit more buttoned up than maybe somewhere like Jamaica or even the Bahamas. Jamaica is extremely laid back. So all of the Jamaicans are overly friendly all the time. And it's not that the Turks and Caicos are not, it's just that they are in a very different atmosphere, a different culture. And so they are a little bit more buttoned up all the time versus, but you will see them let loose too, depending on who you run into and what bartender you get or what server. But I think overall, generally speaking, and the first time I went there, I thought it was going to be very similar, or I thought the Turks and Caicos were going to be very similar to Bahamians because those two islands are very similar to one another. They actually used to all be one island until they got their independence. So I assumed that they would be very similar to the Bahamians, who are also very like free spirited, but they weren't. And so I was a little taken back our first visit. And then I kind of started taking it in a little bit more every time we've been. And I'm like this, and it's not just beaches. I've been to the Ritz, I've been to Seven Stars, I've been to Waimea, I've been to the village down there. It's just the culture down there. They're, like I said, they're just a little bit more buttoned up. And for good reason, because that's usually their clientele. They're a little bit more of a sophisticated traveler. And so I think if you know that going into it, you will appreciate it a lot more and you wouldn't feel like they're standoffish by any means, because that's certainly not their intention. That's just how they are on the island, and not everybody. It really depends on who you get there.
Carrie, I know that you guys loved fortune cookie, but what about the other service that you've had there?
I think how Stephanie described it is so true. When we've been to Sandals properties in Jamaica, it is let loose, kind of wild, crazy, just everyone's relaxed, everyone's outgoing. Here, it's not going to be that all the time, because I do think they are catering sort of to the population that travels there. I think sometimes it comes off, I read these reviews and read these groups, the feedback too. And so I will say that the service at beaches is not the service at a Sandals where it's couples only. So I don't know if that factors into where it's kids and maybe they just are trained to be a certain level. Sometimes the Sandals resorts have felt almost stuffy, just the way that they communicate. Here at beaches, I don't get that vibe at all. They just talk to you like a friend. They'll have conversations. We didn't encounter any negative service. We actually had two familiar faces from the year before that were still there this year. And so one came over and asked to take a picture with our group of kids because we went with the same families. So he was there and recognized them. One of the guys in the entertainment by Tuesday was calling the kids by the first names, because they had done the activities with him and they remembered him from the last time. My daughter had a question for one of the workers one night walking to dinner if he's ever seen snow. And so he stopped and he was a gardener on the night shift, and we had probably a 30-minute conversation with him. He grew up in St. Vincent. And so he talked about why he was working at Turks. He talked about the economy. He talked about life growing up, the schools, all of this fascinating stuff, just because she asked him one simple question. So I think it's more if we just go into it as tourists with the expectation to just be nice to these people, they're not trained, I think, to just have heartwarming, open conversations with you. But if you engage with them, then they will converse. They'll tell you kind of anything you want to know. But they've also been trained hey, these people are paying really good money to come here. So keep everything at minimum, don't invoke the conversations, those types of things. So I think how she described it is so true. But for us, we've never had a service issue. The very first time we went, I didn't like the view of our room in the village because I could look out and see sort of some of the construction being built at their new village that's going in. And within 20 minutes, they had come up to get our bags and moved us into one that was just strictly ocean view. They also have, through the app when you travel, it's called Gina. So if you run out of towels, or if something doesn't work right, or if you want white wine instead of red wine in your refrigerator, it was never more than 10 minutes and someone was at your door with whatever we needed just by messaging through that app. And so for us, we haven't experienced any of that. And I hate it if people travel there and they do, because it would be a complete bummer if you're paying and you're at this beautiful place and the service is not good. Fortunately for us, for 2 years, we haven't had any issues. And that's kind of why we keep going back, because like Stephanie touched on it, it's the one place where adults and kids alike can wake up every day and there's something for everybody to do. Service, that's kind of what keeps us coming back.
I will say, and so I see a lot of the behind the scenes just in my industry, and we work firsthand with the resort staff there, the managers. And I will say Jamie McAnally and Tanya Swan are two of the managers there. They are hands down the most responsive, caring managers that I've ever worked with. And I work with resort managers all over the Caribbean and Mexico, Hawaii, Disney. They are by far, they operate the biggest, one of the biggest resorts probably in the world. It's huge. If you heard the crazy facts about how many eggs they go through every day, like you realize how big that resort is. But as many guests that they have staying at that resort every single day, there's never an email that I don't send to Tanya that she doesn't respond to. Or there's never a time that I've been and not walked into her office and she stopped and taken a picture with me. Or Jamie has responded to an email or greeted our family. So I will say that is one thing that keeps us going back. Is it's not just we want a beautiful beach and our kids to have a good time. It's that we know the backbone behind that resort is so pure, and the management is so amazing and so gracious in everything that they do every single day. So I didn't want that opportunity to pass for me to say how wonderful the management team is there across the board.
Amazing. I love how many touch points you have there. What are they building? Are they building a brand new area?
Yes. So it'll be ready to start booking January of 2025. It's called Treasure Beach. It will be their new villas section. It will be right on the other side of the Caribbean Village. So if you're standing on the beach and you're looking at the Seaside / Caribbean Village, it will be right on the right of that. And they are going to have some amazing, amazing amenities there. I think I saw like a bowling alley, more pools, lots of butler suites and villas going in. So they are the structures are up. I believe they will be ready to be for guests to stay in the beginning of 2026. Don't quote me on that. But what we have been told is they will be ready to be booked January of 2025. So we're really
exciting. Very exciting. Okay, I know we've kept you guys a while, so each of you are going to get the closing Trip Tales question. Stephanie, if someone out there is considering booking a trip to Beaches Turks and Caicos, what is it about this resort that would make you say, just book it?
If you are looking for the top all-inclusive in Turks and Caicos for families and on the #1 beach, that is exactly what Beaches Turks and Caicos is. There is nowhere else on the island that matches what Beaches Turks and Caicos has to offer.
Amazing. And you've been such a wealth of knowledge. Where can people find you online if they would like to tap into all of your amazing services points at this resort?
Yes. So of course we have a website. It is travelingears.com, but we are always active on Instagram. I have tons of videos, highlights, reels on all the resorts and destinations. So you can find us on Instagram at Traveling Ears Vacations.
Amazing. And I'll put that all in the show notes too. Okay, Carrie, if someone out there is considering a trip to Beaches Turks, what is it about this resort that would make you say, just book it?
I think if someone is looking for a clean, fun, safe place to go with absolutely beautiful beaches, I think this is the place for you. There's a saying sometimes you hear, I need a vacation from my vacation. We travel, you take these trips, it's exhausting, especially if you're a mom who's packing and planning. This one is not. You come back and everyone is happy. Everyone is relaxed. There's no rush. There's no stress. It's just the one place that we have vacationed as a family of 4 where everyone's happy all the time there. and everyone's sad to leave. We have no regrets about going it. So you should give it a try.
Amazing. Well, everyone, there you have it. There are two sides to every story, and now you have two positive reviews of Beaches, Turks, and Caicos. Thank you guys so much for being here and for sharing your side of the Beaches, Turks story. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Kelsey.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful talking to both of you.
That wraps up another episode of Trip Tales. If you have a trip you'd like to share about on the podcast, email me at triptalespodcast@gmail.com and I'll add you to the schedule. Also, be sure to follow the show so that you don't miss any upcoming vacation destinations. And if you have an extra minute in your day, please leave a review for the podcast. It helps more than you could imagine. Thank you so much, and I'll see you on the next episode of Trip Tales.